This meeting is being recorded. Good evening, everyone, and happy Republic Day. I believe today was the first time that we had the largest flypast of 75 aircrafts, giving us a good view of the pilot and how it caught on the flights. And I think that's the bird's eye view that we wanted to have and keep when we designed the ISDL. So here we are on the finals of ISDL, where around 800 students across 10 states came together and competed across the theme of connecting minds and connecting the future, covering the themes of space tech, biotech, AI, science tech, and society. And it was really great to see them together over the past 1 month now in the same lens of technology and state. And we've seen this pretty much from the days of Babylonian dynasty, the Sumerians and the Romanians and the Ottomans. I heard a quick comment. Was there something that somebody wanted? We are good. All of you are settled? Hi, Shruti. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm so sorry for joining in late.
Oh, no, that's all right. We wish you also a quick, happy Republic Day. But we were just setting the context as we begin the series today for the finals. The fact is that we were very inspired with the Babylonian dynasty, and you'll hear more about that as I introduce what is exciting to the teams coming up. But pretty much what was a common theme that we saw for them was how all of them thrived, how all these societies thrived when great leaders created an ecosystem of invention and discoveries, because that was pretty much what led to the success of these societies. So as we thought deeper about what the theme for the ISDL should be, it was pretty much technology that we wanted to conclude on, because it has been the bedrock of new empires and republics. So all of you, I'm sure, have heard about the chariots of the Babylonians and the great structure, surgical tools, postal systems that are taught to you in your history textbook, which were add-ons from the Romans. But closer to the times now, while we see, US, China taking lead in global leadership owing to technology, it's the innovations like artificial intelligence that are rendering the developing economies like ourselves a competitive edge in the field of science and technology. And that's what we wanted to make sure that we debate about today, because that's where we see us shaping the future of our country. And just recently, I just saw this very interesting movie, The Imitation Game, which is an ode to the father of computers, Alan Turing, where he says something very interesting. He says sometimes it's the people who no one imagines anything of who will do the things that no one can imagine. And I really wish the same for all of your futures, because you are such young minds and you will shape this journey forward for yourself. So with that, I would love to sort of go forward to the theme that we have, which we were talking about, which is that how is technology going to be an enabler to the future of this country? And with that, we thought about who's going to be the best eminent speaker to take us through that, who's going to be able to take the recent most talk of town together on metaphors for us. So we do have Amrita Vasan. Amrita, if you can just go a quick wave of the hand to the audience here. There she is. Thank you so much. So Amrita joins us today. A brief introduction, Amrita, before I hand it over to you. She is the co-founder and chief operating officer for InSpirit VR. A recent recognition was a Forbes 30 under 30 recipient of 2022, and leading InSpirit VR, which is recognized as a top edtech company by ASU GSV. Her background is in being in systems engineering from Georgia Tech, and extensive research in the field of STEM education. So, Amrita, do talk to us about your story, how you left the corporate world to venture into creating an XR platform for the betterment of students itself, as you take us through the InSpirit VR and the metaverse journey. So, over to you, Amrita. Happy to hear a few words from you.
Thank you so much, Anjali, and hi, everyone. So I don't necessarily want to start from college and from school, and I hope you all can hear me and there isn't too much background noise. But so I actually grew up in Chennai from 5th to 12th standard, did a lot of debate, very similar to you guys, MUN. But actually, my most favorite thing was basketball. I was a national level basketball player, and I really did not enjoy studying. So I got pretty bored pretty quickly studying STEM. But of course, my parents made sure that I took the science stream when I went to 11th and 12th. I finished engineering and I did exactly what every Indian parent wants their kids to do. So when I got to college, I truly didn't enjoy what I was doing necessarily. I worked with a lot of large companies in the US. Wasn't really happy with how things were, and very honestly, I didn't have a very fun time learning science in school. And so that's when Aditya and I got together and we realized there's a lot in gaming. Do any of you guys play Fortnite or Minecraft or Dota or any other multiplayer game? Can you just put your hand up if you do? I did too, and I preferred playing games over studying any day. And so what we realized is it's because it's interesting. It's not that science is not interesting, right? When you're younger and your teachers show you butterflies and they show you, a plant growing and you get to actually garden yourself and see it in action, that's what makes it cool, right? But when it gets boring, it gets really boring when people start putting up math equations on the board and drawing it out, and you don't actually get to see what you're learning in science and what you're learning in STEM. And so that's what we wanted to change, right? With the power that so much technology gives us, there are 12-year-old kids who are now multimillionaires just through building games on Roblox. So why can't we build that for education, right? So that's what we're kind of doing at Inspirit. We're building, and the fancy word is metaverse. But truly, it's what you guys are already doing, right? You play games on your phone, you play games on your computer, you talk to your friends on Instagram or Facebook, or probably a new app that I'm not even aware of because now I'm old. But that is the metaverse, right? Once you go into a digital space and you're able, or this debate, right? You're all at home on this debate right now. All of this is bringing people together, right? And when they say education metaverse, it's how do we bring people together online and teach in a very interesting way. And so at Inspirit, because I have to tell you what our company does, what we do is we build out interactive 3D science models and simulations, which basically just means that if you can throw a ball in real life, we want you to be able to do that on our app. And everything that you're doing in your games, we want you to be able to do it on Inspirit and actually learn what's happening while you're doing that. And so our website will speak for itself. So it's inspiritvr.com if you guys want to check it out. There's lots of learning material there. There's lots of cool things happening. There's an app as well. You can look it up on the App Store. And another thing that we're actually working on right now are NFTs, which I am also slowly learning about right now. But how many of you guys know what NFTs are? Just put your hand up if you know what it is. Okay, a little bit. You know, in games when you can win points and you can win like coins and you can use that to buy, I don't know, clothes for your avatar, right, in a game, or you can use it to win a prize. Similar to that, you can actually win things in the application as well, because and that is kind of tied into this whole idea of the metaverse. And so the really cool thing is, as when you guys become my age, there's going to be so much more out there for you to do, and you'll be able to build things yourselves, you'll be able to create things yourselves, you'll even be able to earn by yourself without even having to step outside, right? And so that's exactly what we want to give you and we want you guys to do. And so in a couple of months, we're going to open it up and you guys will be able to build your own 3D worlds and your own STEM worlds. And that's when the metaverse actually happens and you guys are part of it. And so good luck for this debate, and don't let this be the end of it. I know that it's hard, but do try, like the games that you're playing, everything you're doing is adding to what you're going to do in the future, and just have fun and really love what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Amrita. And it is so exciting to actually hear about somebody building out the metaverse ecosystem. So, kids, think about it. All your science experiments, all of it is an actual reality, or actually in a playbook that you can move around on. So it reminds me a bit of Inception as well, the way I see it. Build my own universe. But with that, I think we have to come closer to the person who's going to educate us. So we have Dr. Lakshmi Kumar with us. Doc Saab, if you can just quickly do a wave of a hand. Thank you so much. She joins us from her very busy schedule and is an epitome of how pedagogy and training can be used to train young minds. Ma'am, a few things about yourself. There's such a long list, but I will definitely pick up a few. You are the founder of the Orchid School, Pune, where you're a cross-cultural training consultant, apart from being an academic advisor to the Sweden-India project, based on Obro University, an honorary doctorate in the Social Work and Humanities Department, TCS Iron 21st Century Technology Leader in spite of being an educator as well, and a Planet's Pride Award winner by the Women Planet Foundation, and the list goes on. So there's such a long list of ma'am's credits. So we are honored to have your presence today amongst us all, and look forward to hearing a few words from you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm awfully embarrassed that you put all those accolades. Some of them are very, very outdated in the last 2 years of pandemic. So I do want to surrender to the reality that after 3 decades of running schools and being in the education system, I'm ground zero when it comes to schooling in pandemic. I'm probably not the extraordinary user of all the games and the technology, but I know that without that there is no future for education. And I think it's the judicious choice of technology and all the human spirit that we need to blend to bring back children safely to school. So I'm excited and I'm looking forward to hearing young people's versions of views on today's topic. Uh, I think what I really love and admire about young people and children and working with young people is that I never feel very old, even though I grow old in my physical body. And I see a tremendous hope in the young people and the way that they can shape the world. Good luck.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for those kind words. And I was very humble indeed, as heard of. So coming next, we do have an eminent jury member who's also joined us, coming in from ISDS, and who's a part of the training coaching team, is an excellent debater. She is Shruti Dev. Shruti, a quick wave of the hand. A few things about herself. Now she's a youngster from the National Law University, Vizag, and an aspiring human rights lawyer. Having won the ESL championships for Australs in 2021, we are very proud of you, having coming and joined us, Shruti, today. So Shruti herself has also been a part of the chief education team for 20 plus universities. So quick words on techniques or debating itself, Shruti, will be lovely to set the context before we dive right into the first debate. So we'll hear from you as well, Shruti.
Hi, thank you for the kind introduction, Anjali. Hi everyone. I'm so happy to see everyone's faces, especially given the pandemic. Just seeing so many faces, albeit online, it's just great to hang out with people who I'm not directly related to for a change. In terms of debating, I actively started out debating about a year and a half ago. It's an activity that I hold so close to my heart. When I started out debating in school and I didn't do it as seriously, my primary attraction to debating was the fact that I'm allowed to speak uninterrupted for 5 solid minutes and everybody around has to listen. And I think as a child, you constantly crib about not being taken seriously enough or people not paying heed to your opinions. So my primary attraction to debating in my school years was that I would talk and everybody would have to listen. That's what made me get into debating. But honestly, what made me stick around is that I think debating gave me some really honest perspective on just recognizing the fact that you are not, in fact, always correct. And as nice as it may be to have your opinions heard, it's just as exciting and just as interesting to have somebody change your mind about things that you thought you very firmly believed in just by using the power of words. I think debating is such an incredibly important skill to have, especially amongst the youth today, not just because it's important that your voices be heard and that you articulate what you really believe in. Of course, we are the future. We have to make a difference, and to make a difference, it is so important to be able to let people know what it is that you really believe, to question the things that we have been told cannot be changed, to essentially mechanize progress in a manner that is inclusive, in a manner that allows for others' voices to be heard, and in a manner that allows us to change our minds as well when we are met with new perspectives. That's why I think debating is so incredibly important. And I really hope that that's a lesson that you take away from this activity.
Thank you so much, Shruti. In fact, the quality of debates, impressed us so much that this time round we've invited the spectators to watch it as well. So you can see a lot more people who joined us. So thank you so much, especially to the spectators who joined us today. And the fact is that to make sure that we were doing justice to the debaters, we in fact got 2 judges per tournament. So you will see 2 of you judging per tournament, and we'll see which are the best teams that come up. But for all of you, I have one special announcement as well. Today, we are opening the registration for the Ogly Babylon Club, the one that I had mentioned earlier. It is going to be the first of its kind of semi-supervised leadership and debating learning club. This is pretty much in line with the city of Babylon. Yes, the first of its kind, the largest early city in the world, which was founded 3,000 years back. Because the city itself has been a guiding temple for all of us across the world, not only for the civilization that it was a part of. The idea of coordinated living, which we today call urban development, had been their gift to us. But the most important learning from Babylon was the importance of good leadership. And each time it thrived, there was a leader behind it. And each time it fell, there was a rotten apple behind it. So, with that recall in our head, we are starting the Ogly Babylon Club, where the students from across the world are going to be trained under the guidance of the world's best debaters and leaders. So initially, we are going to start with the 3 Indian cities of Gurgaon, Pune, and Bangalore, and then continue to expand it. So we will be shortly opening the registrations for that. So do look up on our social media handles for that. So that was my special announcement for the spectators. With that, what I'm going to do is we are going to kickstart our finals today, which I think we are running a minute ahead on time. So I'm going to hand this over to Kamal. Kamal, we could kickstart with our first debate for the evening. The first debate is for grades 7 to 9 for Team Delhi versus Uttar Pradesh. So what we're going to do is, Team Delhi, are you all ready? Can you please put a quick thumbs up on your icons? Lovely. I can see Myra, Sneh, and Arav. Perfect. Just pinning you guys. And for Team Uttar Pradesh, are we all there?
Ma'am, isn't it
Haryana.
Team Haryana?
Haryana, Fatima, Shivansh, and Krisha. Right? You're all there. So Kamal, should I hand it over to you for moderation now? So team, what we will do?
Give me a moment, yeah.
Yeah, this debate will be adjudicated by Shruti ma'am and Lakshmi ma'am. Shruti ma'am and Lakshmi ma'am, I hope you have your adjudication sheet with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Lakshmi ma'am, you are comfortable with the adjudication sheet as well? Perfect. Perfect.
Yes, yes. Sorry.
Yeah. Because what we will do, ma'am, over here, just for the teams as well, we will just make sure that both of you are simultaneously adjudicating it. In case there is a split decision, that we will weigh in. So Shruti, you're there from Team Ogly, who's going to weigh in with your views as well and ratings as well. So, but Ogly will come into play only when there's a split decision. So Kamal, just let us know whenever you're ready. Otherwise, I'm happy to just take forward and introduce the topic for the group.
Sure. Go on.
Okay. So we've heard this before, and we know this very well. The data simulations show that by 2030, about 70% of the companies globally will have adopted some sort of AI technology. And we know that Indian laws like data protection hold that we should be regulating these tech giants. But that's the context that we wanted to set before the debate topic today. The teams over here will be debating on the topic. This house would allow AI-based companies to self-regulate. So if the teams are ready, then I would love to sort of call the team proposition. Myra is the first speaker to go. Myra, you can begin in 3, 2, 1.
Predicting the future isn't magic, it's artificial intelligence. Dave Waters. I'd like to begin by stating how our case today is designed. As the first speaker, I will be elaborating on 2 arguments, and our second speaker will be talking about the third and fourth argument and defend our case further. Now let's understand this motion. Self-regulation is an alternative form of governance wherein industry designs and enforces new rules and standards for themselves, often in areas where government rules are lacking. So if the opposition team feels that self-regulations means not following any rules whatsoever, then they should please revisit the dictionary. But what would self-regulation, especially in this debate in AI, mean? The corporations developing AI technology and the countries tasked with regulating them. And we believe traditional regulatory solutions seem ill-suited to the task of minimizing public risk while sustaining innovation. Now, moving on to our model. Our model simply states that a set of regulations will be released by the company, and these will be in adherence to the laws and expectations of the prevalent system and government. And once these regulations are approved, then the company should move ahead in a free and undeterred manner to progress with the AI development work. Let me now come to my constructives. Before we start with the first argument, it's important to set up what the world looks like. There is a booming partnership between the privates and the government. AI in this scenario can be described in three ways. Firstly, it's a tool. Secondly, which is affected by human tendencies. And thirdly, which maxifies the good in a person, but also the faults of a person. Now, upon this setup lies our first argument. The government has three major characteristics in contrast to AI. Firstly, the government is at the end of the day a political institution. This means that when the government regulates, it influences the very making of the AI and gives it a political turn. We do not believe politics should be involved in technology. Secondly, the understandable nature of a private is to go after profits. The issue here is giving the private that profit and influencing it. The very involvement of the government in AI-based companies is wrong because they manipulate the nature of the company to make them go after defense. Their regulation policies also revolve around these ideas, only not letting the private develop AI to its full extent. For example, China, where the government actively forces the privates to use AI for mass surveillance. Thirdly, the government ideally makes sector-based decisions and does not look at AI as a community technology, but a defense technology. This harms the public because they're not able to access the profits of AI directly. Now, moving on to the second argument. The privates would be better at self-regulating, as when they won't be limited by the many regulations the government lays on them, then they will be able to achieve more in less time, be more efficient, gain more benefits, and have better developments. For example, in the late 1980s and early 1990s, AI suffered a series of financial setbacks. Many fundings were cut, projects for development were delayed, and over 300 AI companies had shut down, gone bankrupt, or been acquired by the end of 1993, effectively ending the first commercial wave of AI. But when regulations were lessened by external authorities, there was a sudden boom in development. By 2009, nearly all sectors in the US economy had at least an average of 200 terabytes of stored data. By 2016, the market for AI-related products, hardware, and software reached more than $8 billion. And the New York Times reported that interest in AI had reached a frenzy. The point here being, when regulations from outside bodies were lessened, we saw so much more development. Just imagine what we could achieve, how much more developed we could become if these companies were to self-regulate. Let's take a few examples. A self-regulatory organization, SRO, is one that has the power to set industry standards and regulation through its own effort. Effective SROs are able to provide standards and enforcement of those
I have a
standards
POI.
on their members. Yes, I would like to take your POI.
Yes, you guys mentioned, so you mentioned in your speech that they won't be limited by regulation, right? So if they're not, if they're limited by regulation, if they're not limited by regulation, if they, let's say we supposedly allow them to self-regulate, won't there be corruption, since they're, let's say, making their own rules? Couldn't there be corruption as a major problem, and this could lead to crime rates in the company itself?
That is exactly why I was giving these examples. SRO is a company that self-regulates, and we are seeing that they have no corruption, and also corruption is something that is majorly within the government. Also, I would like to move on with my constructives now. Google, which is another example, has created significant advancements to our society and can continue to do so. Government regulation mean to deflate the monopoly could have the unintended consequence of derailing future inventions, meaning everyone loses. Instead, Google has beaten them the punch with thoughtful self-regulation that limit short-term gains but preserve its interconnected companies and resources for the long term. These are just few examples that do implement self-regulation and have seen very efficient results. Concluding here, we believe privates could make a more developed, more efficient, and overall a better industry out of AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Myra.
Thank you, Myra, for your speech.
Yeah.
With that, let me go to the first speaker of the team opposition, Fatima. Before Fatima start, I want to reiterate few rules for the POIs. So each speaker have 5 minutes to speak for. Also at 4:30, That means 30 seconds before your dedicated time of 5 minutes, I will bring a bell. I'm gonna play this bell. At 4:30, I'm gonna play it for 3 seconds. At sharp 5, I'm gonna play it continuously. So you know you have to wrap it up. That's A. B, there's dedicated time for POIs. That's between the second minutes onward to the fourth minute. So you have out of 5 minutes, only 3 minutes for POIs. That's the time where the opponent can ask the POI. The rest is a reserved time where you can't ask the POIs because it disturbs the flow of the speaker. Is that clear to both the teams?
Excuse me, sir.
Perfect. Yes.
After the first minute, right?
Yes, after the first minute. First till fourth. Perfect. So now let me invite the first speaker of the team Haryana, the captain of there, Fatima Zara. Fatima, I'm going
We've
to play the
arrived in
counter
the
3, 2, 1, and then you can start. 3, 2, 1, start.
We've arrived in the age of automation, overconfident and underprepared. Good evening, everyone. I'm Fatima Zara, and today I'll prove to you exactly why how to not allow companies to self-regulate. Firstly, let's define AI. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is the ability of a digital computer or a computer-controlled robot to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings. And today I'll be presenting 3 arguments as to why we should not allow AI companies to self-regulate. My first point is going to talk about the loss of privacy. AI systems, like other technologies, are tools used by humans. The impacts of AI systems in society largely depend not on the complex code that underlies them, but on who uses them, for what purposes they're being used, and who they're used on. And these are two critical issues to be left to private companies to self regulate. In July 2019, it was announced that Facebook was to be fined $5 billion by the Federal Trade Commission due to its privacy violations. And in October 2019, Facebook did agree to pay the fine to the UK's Information Commission's office for exposing the data of its users to a serious risk of harm. If companies are exposing our privacy even when there is regulation, imagine what could happen if companies were allowed to self regulate. I'll now be taking POIs. Is there a POI? No. Let's also take, for example, the use of facial recognition tools trying ubiquitous mass surveillance. Given that facial recognition impact violates a number of fundamental rights, including the right to privacy and the right to assembly. Yeah, I'll be taking your POI.
Yes, ma'am. Don't you believe that with contracts between governments such as that of the Zimbabwe government as well as the Chinese government with POI, with the privates is actually an implication of the government's ideology, not exactly of that of the private?
Sorry, I believe you're saying that there's a contract between the governments and the private companies. That is not entirely self-regulation. May I go on? Given that facial recognition impact violates a number of fundamental rights, including the right to privacy and the right to free assembly, we can see quite clearly that any such application of AI needs the strictest government regulations. My second point is going to talk about how self-regulation isn't going to be effective. AI systems are increasingly impacting our lives, deciding what kind of job you can get, which colleges admit children, and even what kind of medical treatment you get. We simply can't allow companies to make regulations for high-risk sectors such as healthcare or transportation, which involves human life. This can't be left to self-regulation. We must understand that the primary motto of a private company is to maximize profit, and therefore the entire focus remains on profit. Self-regulation shall promote multiple standards of regulation, which can even be contradictory, as a company shall make regulations which suits itself, and there is no punishment if they break it. And likewise, different companies shall make different regulations. Ultimately, government regulation sets a floor for all companies so that they can invest in responsible AI without having to worry about their competitors having more competitive prices. Without appropriate government regulation, this can easily become a race to the bottom, where companies are forced to focus only on reducing prices to successfully compete in the market. This is the reason why many big tech companies have recently started calling for regulation, which brings me to my next and last point, which is that the regulation of AI is actually helpful to the growth of AI. Sundar Pichai of Alphabet and Google, Elon Musk of Tesla, Amazon, and Microsoft, and even Facebook have all called for various forms of regulation. When we look across different industries, the idea that regulation will kill innovation outright has not played out, and there is no reason it should in the AI context either. Regulation has been successfully implemented without killing all innovation across a variety of industries. In many of these cases, industry leaders bemoaned regulation, only to find out later that it allowed for new forms of innovation. Car makers did not want regulation that would have demanded seatbelts and other safety features. In the end, these are staple features of cars today and have successfully reduced fatality rates. Redounding, one can only assume, to the popularity of the car and the benefit of the industry on the whole without killing the car industry. I shall summarize my points now, with number one being the loss of privacy, number two being about how self-regulation isn't going to be effective, and number three about how government regulation is ultimately good for innovation. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima, for your speech. With that, let me check with the Arif. Arif from Team Delhi. Are you ready for your speech?
I'll just take 10 seconds. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, you are ready, Arif, now?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, start.
Good morning. I will be starting my speech with a few rebuttals to demolish the opponent's arguments. And then I will go on to strengthen our arguments by providing two constructives. The first speaker said that without government agency regulation, Facebook had to pay $5 billion. But there is another flaw with regulators from government. The main issue regulators face is the lack of expertise in their relevant technological field, complicating their ability to manage the relationship between existing regulations and a new technology. Their main point lies that they believe that privates are organizations which act on the basis of certain ideology. They're actually reciprocative in nature on the basis of funds that they get. When an innovation is introduced, immediate regulation risks being stifling or counterproductive, since little is known about its potential impact on society. I don't believe that the first speaker even understood what self-regulation means. It doesn't mean that there are no rules, but it actually means that the industry itself is making the rules. You see, the regulation should be left to the discretion of the user, as AI is used by the user. Currently, metaverse is self-regulated and is the future of technology and AI. So this proves that even big companies like Microsoft or Facebook are actually not regulated by government, but actually by the industry itself. Now moving on to my constructives, which will prove what are the advantages of self-regulating AI. My first argument talks about how without data, AI will not thrive. Firstly, to clarify, we're not debating on the topic if AI is beneficial or not. After setting the groundwork that it is beneficial, let's continue. What is AI? It is the use of data and experience to make decisions and learning things in humane fashion. Now, the keyword here is data or customer information. Let's also understand that government agencies or other bodies are putting restriction that the major one being data privacy and protection. Now, to paint the picture, the simple argument.
Have a POI.
I'll be taking POIs later on in my speech. Thank you.
All right.
Argument is that the hindrance of various policies would not allow private firms to collect required amount of data to fuel AI. For these AI fields to mature, their AI algorithms will require massive amounts of data. Natural language processing, for example, will not be possible without millions of sampling of human speech, recorded and broken down into the format that AI engines can more easily process. For example, do you remember the discrimination crisis in the Amazon employment system? This is solved without the interference of any regulating body. The blockage of data would not allow the AI market to thrive and develop at the rate that it is. And this is definitely not a desired situation. The basic concept of my second point is that how the regulation done by government uncovers the truth about several flaws. The public also believes that the law lags behind technological innovation and that regulators allow regulatory gaps to persist for fear of impending economic growth and innovation. In one of his first public remarks as the new chairman of Alphabet, Google's parent company, renowned computer scientist John Hennessy echoed the same sentiment, stating that technology industry moves too quickly for the government to effectively regulate it. Self-regulation may also help avoid conflicting government regulations that risk stifling information in the name of protecting consumer without helping either cause. After establishing that AI works using technology, we can understand another flaw. AI firms regulated by government would be completely different in different countries, leading to inequality in the data that, for example, medical data collecting AI gets. Now I'm open to POIs from the opposition team.
George, go.
Yeah. So you guys mentioned a lot of governments which have not allowed companies to profit, right? Except for China, which is an authoritarian government in this case. Could you give any other example, which is, I mean, in the case, stopping the companies?
You mean like how these regulations are stopping companies?
Yeah, not benefiting the companies, right? You said regulations and a lot of governments are not helping with that. So
yeah, so it's basically like these governments are putting regulations.
I'm asking for the example of the government. Which government, except for China? Any other example?
Like EU, basically.
The entire European Union.
Yeah, basically.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Nobel Prize winning political economist Eleanor Ostrom found a way. In some cases, their revered self-organization can work well, especially when the various people and groups involved can communicate effectively. They called it polycentric governance because it allows regulation to come from more than just one central authority. Their work can help determine if and when companies can effectively regulate themselves. The tragedy of the common incident is a great example to justify this. In this example, economists came up with two solutions to fix the overpopulation of sheep in a grazing field: to let the government step in or let the land be divided, sustainably managed, the latter being more beneficial. Here, I rest my case by saying that data loss and the example of the tragedy of the common points proves the motion true. The proposition team shall rise and the weak, baseless arguments of the opposition team shall fall. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. Before asking the second speaker to come, I just want to clarify one point. So Shivansh or anyone who's going to raise POI this time, you can't ask multiple clarification on the one POI. It's not a conversation. So it's just one way. So put it as clear as possible within 15 seconds so other can understand it. There should not be further questioning or not. With that, let me go to the second speaker from Team Haryana, Krisha Mehra. Krisha,
Can
are
I
you
get
ready?
10 Can I get 10 seconds?
Sure. Take your time.
And while she does take her time, I had a few doubts regarding the POI system, if I can trust.
Sure, go on.
Yes, so understanding what happened in the previous speech wasn't exactly the most, cohesive thing. So I understanding that how Arav took extra time only because that interruptions happened, which shouldn't have in the first place.
Yeah,
so
so
that's
Arav got those few times. So Arav extended bit time, and those only because of the multiple clarification that he has to deal
so
with.
he basically did not extend time. So that's just the clarification.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I guess that's one of the things that maybe online thing is learning how to handle the POIs. That's become quite complicated. Yeah. But anyways, so Krisha, whenever you are ready, we are ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, I'm gonna put the timer. 3, 2, 1, start.
Elon Musk said, the pace of progress in artificial intelligence is incredibly fast, and you have no idea how fast. It is growing at a pace close to exponential, and the risk of something seriously dangerous happening is now in the 5-year time frame or 10 years at the most. Good evening to the House at large. I will be continuing my team's arguments and rebutting. I was looking forward to starting with my constructives, but looking at the absurd arguments stated by Team Proposition, I'm forced to start with the rebuttals. The government is not only a political sector, as the first speaker said. A government is a system or a group of people governing an organized community, as per Wikipedia. Please check the dictionary again. The first speaker of Team Proposition also gave an example of China, but that's not valid as it represents an authoritarian government, whereas majority of the globe is democratic. And the first speaker of Team Proposition also said that corruption occurs mainly in governments, but corruption can also be there in other sectors. It's not only for governments. And also in each key area, history has proven that SROs are not enough. Take the example of financial markets, not now. Um, um, Take the example of financial markets where the stock exchange are in effect SROs. However, we have SEBI in India and SEC in the US, and these SROs did not prove strong enough to protect the consumers. As per the SEC, between 2000 and 2010, they found over 10, yes, 10 major failures to act on unlawful trading activities by well-known SROs, such as the New York Stock Exchange. And the second speaker said that governments will not have expertise in technology. They may not have expertise in technology, but they have expertise in creating and implementing laws that benefit the people as a general. Governments can also partner with experts to gain knowledge. Yes?
So you had said that you said governments actually do have expertise and they can make laws, but I think that is completely wrong. And they won't have the expertise because they haven't gotten any research done on the topic. So how do you justify that?
Governments can actually partner up with experts to gain knowledge, and they may not have as much expertise in technology or their specific fields, but they do have expertise in creating and implementing laws that benefit the people, and they don't need to research on that as they have experience. Moving on to my arguments. One, as Oscar Wilde said, I can resist everything except temptation. And as history and the track record of commercial firms shows, self-regulation isn't exactly their forte. Let me cite some examples of misses by commercial firms in AI past. A recent study published in Science showed that the risk prediction in AI tools used in healthcare, which affects millions of people in the United States every year, exhibits significant racial biases. And Amazon's automated resume screener filtered out female candidates. And in March 2016, Microsoft learned that using Twitter interactions as training data for machine learning algorithms can have dismaying results. And they released an AI chat box on the social media platform. Within 16 hours, the chat box posted more than 95,000 tweets, and those tweets rapidly turned overtly racist, misogynist, and anti-Semitic. Damage like that cannot be fully undone. In the case of AI, much of the development in that firms do is highly secretive, and firms would not like to share their aims and means unless they are forced to. Another big example risk with AI, especially strong AI and self-teaching AI, is that we are probably at the nascent phase of understanding it. Ray Kurzweil, an American futuristic experts, say that artificial intelligence will just a second, not now. Yeah. Another bit. That Ray Kurzweil, the American futurist experts say that artificial intelligence will reach human levels by around 2029. Following that out to further say that by 2045, we will have multiplied the intelligence and the human biological machine intelligence of our civilization to 1 billion fold. We as a race do not even understand what the power and ramifications of AI at that stage can be, and it will be a big risk to allow a myriad sets of interests, sensitivities, and ethical interpretations to choose their own paths and self-regulate. Just in 2021 alone, approximately 75 billion funding was raised by US AI startups. And this number is growing, and AI is the most funded pursued technology access there is. So you can imagine the tens of thousands of companies from a wide variety of geographies pursuing the most powerful technology in the history of mankind. And we expect such a diverse set of firms pursuing commercial interests from the next PE check can effectively self-regulate. Are we even serious about this? With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Krisha, for your speech. With that, let me go to the final speaker of Team Delhi, Sneh Shukla. Sneh, are you ready?
Yes, sir. But just a request from the opposing panel, if you could just raise your hands and not ask verbally the POI. That's a method that I
At the
prefer.
second, if you want to just say no to POI, can wrap your hat. You can just wave your hand virtually. Also, you can't do it virtually when you're speaking. You can do, physically. If it shows, the other person should understand not to intervene. They want to go with their speech and they will come later.
Yes, I also did not want any person to just say POI. Raise your hands. If I want it, I'll take it. If I won't, I'll ignore you. So,
With that, Sneh, I'm going to start your counter. 3, 2, 1, start.
Side, a panel, understand what we are coming here with you. We are showing you a pragmatic way to handle regulation in regards to artificial intelligence, while side opposition till now hasn't told us why is regulation by a particular government beneficial, why is regulation by a particular private not beneficial because of any XYZ reasons, and all the reasons that they have provided us are not important enough or are not substantiated enough. So first of all, handling some rebuttals from the previous speech, governments are a political institution because whatever ideology they make, even in regards to science, even in regards to technology, is influenced by a political understanding. A democratic candidate in America is most probably going to go against Facebook because of data privacy, not because they have a technical understanding of what data privacy actually entails. It's also important to note that how side opposition right now is justifying their points through the source of Wikipedia, and that's actually is just the reason why we should win this debate. Second of all, it's also important to note that what the answers were to the POIs, right? The first POI in which we actually told you why there is an incentive for a private to not go against the very system that they're working for, the system that they are a part of, and why a government does. Understand that on a structural level, self-regulation is important because of three reasons, something that our first speaker in the second argument also told you. The first reason being that it actually makes the whole industry independent, a problem with artificial intelligence. Till 2016 panel, note that there were not major developments in regards to artificial intelligence because there were so many ideological regulations as well as public regulations that were put up. We believe that this would actually be extensive and more implemented when the government starts to put regulations on these private companies. It's also important to note that how inventions have been proven to be stifled the moment these regulations are put forward, because the government does not make decisions. Something again our first speaker told you, does not make decisions on the basis of what the community believes. It makes decisions on the basis of the sectoral growth. They make decisions so that the defense sector would grow in regards to artificial intelligence. And note how panel that most of the countries such as Russia, United States of America, China, and even Zimbabwe right now is actually having a partnership with a private company to make sure that they get robot armies, AI drones, and other defense mechanisms. Note that the only reason they support artificial intelligence in any matter whatsoever is so that they can get better weapons. I understand also, panel, that our final rebuttal would also be in regards to why these privates would go forward and self-regulate in a better manner, because they have an understanding of the whole of the market. They are not prioritizing a particular sector over it. We believe that when Amazon or when any AI company would make a decision, it would not be just on the basis of the defense sector like the government would do. It would also be on the basis of lifestyle. It would also be on the basis of other work related AI systems that we have right now in the world. And that's why it's very important for us to not actually get astray and to note that artificial intelligence is actually in a better hand with the privates. Before that, a POI.
Sorry, so you mentioned that self-regulation will be good, right? But can't there be antitrust issues with the self-regulatory organizations? For example, one where the US Department of Justice just sued the National Association of Realtors on antitrust issues in the government, in the company itself.
It's a company. So if you're actually afraid of having trust issues within the company, why are you not afraid of trust issues outside the company? Why are you not afraid of this? The very reason artificial intelligence is booming is because of this very rare coordination between the private and the government, right? Why are you not actually afraid of this relationship, of this very partnership getting destroyed the moment you put the government in a position by chance wherein they can actually incriminate this private and can actually hurt them, wherein you put this government into a position wherein you can put the government into such a position that the private is not able to develop other technologies because the government does not want them to, because of the ideological political differences. Their whole idea panel is about this thing that the privates are wrong, but they never told us why the government is good. Now the clashes in this particular debate were basically two. First is regulation what is required, and yes, we do believe regulation is required, and the type of regulation is self-regulation, and that self-regulation needs to happen from the side of the company itself. It cannot happen from anyone else, otherwise we have various industrial issues. We've also told you that something which their side hasn't till now and cannot now because of the format that we are in, that why an industry is actually faring well because of the artificial intelligence being self-regulated by the company alone with less involvement of the government. With that, very proud to propose.
Thank you, Sneh, for your speech. With that, let me ask the third speaker from Team Haryana, Shivansh Gupta. Shivansh, are you ready?
Can I take 10 seconds?
Sure.
Yep, that's 10 seconds.
Okay, I'm going to start your counter. 3, 2, 1, start, and then you can start. 3, 2, 1, start.
Okay, so Judge, throughout my entire speech, I'm just going to be rebutting to all the points that they've mentioned now. And in the end, I'll be weighing the debate based on our numbers versus their numbers. Okay, first, let's start with the entire point of rules, right? They say that self-regulation companies and organizations do follow rules. And we agree that they do follow rules. But the entire point is so that the government can oversee them so that these rules don't break and these rules don't cause problems in the company itself. And like we mentioned, problems in crime, problems in trust, problems in legal issues, problems in the economy. This is exactly why the government should be able to oversee them. Secondly, if they're not overseen by the government, they gave us examples of China, right? But they still haven't given us any response to how China is an authoritarian government, which we mentioned many times in the POI and in our speeches as well. That the only example that they used for their entire speech is China as an authoritarian government, which does not count because it's even if you use it as an authoritarian government, it won't matter. Secondly, they do mention the European Union, right? In the POI, they themselves say that the entire European Union itself is against the private companies. Firstly, if you talk about the European Union, Austria itself does not have any air regulations. So your European Union, Austria, which is part of the European Union, does not count. Secondly, Italy itself has its own set of regulations which ensure the safety for the citizens and which ensure the economic boost for the government of Italy. So the regulations formed by the government of Italy in the European Union is actually for protecting the citizens themselves. So the entire point on how the European Union is going against the companies is wrong. Now, let's move on to the point on how they are limited by regulation of the government, right? Firstly, like we mentioned, legal issues, antitrust issues. If you start putting SROs and self-regulated organizations, like we give you an example of the US Department of Justice, which sued the entire company, they itself have antitrust issues inside the company itself. So the entire point is by government regulation, if we do allow government regulations, these trust issues can be stopped. Yes, please go ahead with the POI.
Yes, didn't we give you examples other than China in regards to United States of America having the DARPA program, or the Russian government making AI intelligence armies and only supporting AI in regards to the defense sector? So how do your points stand now?
So our points stand because I mentioned that the United States government, or any government for that matter, using the regulations is trying to oversee them. They're not trying to interrupt the companies. They're not trying to make the companies go out of profit, but the entire point is overseeing them so that they can defend these companies and stop them from crashing down the entire economy by overseeing them, not by interrupting the company's own business. So moving on, you guys mentioned a lot about NLP. I believe the second speaker mentioned about natural language processing, right? And them taking data from other people. Firstly, natural language processing won't be a problem because, like we mentioned, these regulations are only to help them. They're not stopping the natural language processing or the NLP operations that are happening by the company. They're only to help. They won't do anything wrong. Secondly, we talk about block. Yeah, go ahead with the POI.
Yes. Don't you believe that governments right now are actually in various sectors, and that probably an industry like artificial intelligence needs to work independently without any sort of extra governmental indulgence? Because
So,
that's how various technological sectors work. I'm really sorry for that.
yeah. So what my entire point that I'm trying to bring over here is AI companies working in themselves without government regulations. Firstly, they've already lost a lot of data. There have been multiple data leaks. Over 2.5 million medical records were all lost inside an AI company. And like my partner mentioned, there was a loss of $22 million in Clearview AI for facial recognition, I believe. And if these AI companies run by themselves as an SRO, they can have data leaks. Even if you don't buy that, we mentioned trust, right? 75% of the United States population does not trust AI in companies, according to Ipsos poll. So if there's trust issues, if there's privacy issues in the company itself, and like my partner mentioned about racist issues in the company by using AI is itself in the healthcare sector, causing racial bias because the AI algorithm is not working perfectly. So the AI, if we leave the companies just to work themselves alone, these can cause problems, right? And that's what we don't want to happen. We don't want the companies to itself demolish down, and this can hurt the government's economy, and this can hurt other companies that are depending on this company itself, which is why we need government regulations. The government isn't stopping them, but just advising them and overseeing them. That's the entire point. Now, moving ahead to my next point, we mentioned about in the POIs, sorry. Yeah. So the next point I wanted to talk about was blockage of data, right? We mentioned a lot about blockage of data, but the opposition team hasn't responded to that. We mentioned how privacy, like I mentioned in the previous answer before, privacy is an important issue. And by self-regulating organization, if we are just using self-regulating organizations and not regulating them by the government, they can cause a lot of privacy leaks, like I mentioned before. That's the entire point of governments overseeing them. And lastly, onto the crime of crime and corruption in the companies itself, even though the governments, I won't be taking any POI right now, even if the governments may be corrupt, the company itself can also go corrupt. You guys mentioned that the governments are corrupt, but first of all, no example on which governments are corrupt. And secondly, just to summarize in this entire debate, companies can also go corrupt, and there can be a lot of criminal issues inside the company itself, which is why we need government overseeing of these companies. So based on all of the points I mentioned, please vote for the company.
Thank you, Shivansh, for your speech. With that, all the speeches are over. Now we'll go to our adjudicators one by one, and we'll see what's their verdict is. So to ma'am and Lakshmi ma'am and Shruti, both of you have the verdict, or you want to take your time?
Do I share the verdict directly in terms of the
Yes.
scores? Yeah.
Sure.
How does it go? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, you can share the feedback as well as the winning team. Scores is okay because we can see the scores, but we have two adjudicators, so we'll go with the verdict from you.
Okay. Fine. Fair enough. I'm actually so super impressed to start with the thorough research done, the local and the global context, and handling the technology, the legal framework, and the global political context, so comfortably, and their language was so fluent, and it almost looked like that we were hearing the policymakers debate. So congratulations, first of all, to all of you speakers and ISDL for a wonderful topic. You know, you are actually doing a great service of planting such, inquiry-based conversations at such an early age. So I want to congratulate you all for that. And yeah, I mean, my total admiration. So what I see is that the team Haryana seem to have scored a wee bit more. So I wouldn't want to call this a winning or losing team. It's just that they had an edge. And remember, as adjudicators, we also come with our biases. I want to be very, very honest. And I want to also be very honest with the framework with which that we also operate. So I've tried my level best to keep my personal preferences and going purely based on the research, the argument, the manner, as you had given a very beautiful 3M rubrics, so to say. So one tried to really, really go with that. So I've tried my level best. It's very difficult to decide because they were 3+3 brilliant debaters. There is just, it's about every one of you got 95%, and then I have to select one of you. That's where that what you call the degree of excellence is what just changed it. I want to leave my thought about, in addition to everything that you put forth, and I think I saw the way that all of you quickly picked up the protocol of interjection too, and I love that. There was this josh of wanting to ask, and then you realize that somebody's trail of thought got lost. While it's all about winning, I think this is the greatest learning of how do you respectfully bring in your point of view. The other thing that really that struck chord with me is that eventually all these are two sides of the same coin, and that whatever side you have been given, do a fair research, bring in your facts, and use your voice and tone and your body language, and it's the timing that you use, and bring in that appropriate sense of argument, and that's what that you really have played like a magician, or what you call the guy who with multiple balls. What's that called? Yeah. I want to leave you with just that one thought for both the groups, is that we talked about governments. We talked about AI and self-regulation or versus government regulation. When technology is such a omnipresent, borderless phenomenon, in a geopolitical world, that it belongs to the globe, it belongs to the universe, and that technology cohabits with each other across borders. Which government are we talking about? Is there a global governance context, or are we talking about the local governance and local government? Or is there an international context of regulation that should we think about also as an argument? Or should we, because these are not localized, they're very local or global, so to say. So yeah, congratulations. And I wonder if I would have been this smart when I was your age. I swear I wouldn't be. So I'm so blown over by what you have said. Thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to listen to such brilliant minds. So my takeaway is actually, you've given me a kida of, should there be really a regulation locally or should there be a regulation globally? Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you for your verdict as well as the feedback to the student. With that, so Team Haryana, Team Delhi, wait for the second judge to give their verdict. Shruti, over to you.
Hi. I think Lakshmi ma'am was very, very comprehensive in her feedback of the debate, and I agree unequivocally with everything that ma'am said. I think my biggest takeaway from this round, what really impressed me the most, was the passion with which all six speakers delivered their speeches. I think research is probably something that people can get good at over a period of time. Research can only be as compelling as individuals who are delivering it. And I think the reason why my verdict was the same as Lakshmi ma'am's, i.e., the reason why I also felt that team opposition, i.e., Haryana, took the debate was because I think examples are an inexhaustive list. There can be an unending example volley that can happen between teams. However, being able to prove structural reasons as to why something is necessarily going to be true in most instances, and the example is not isolated, it wasn't a one off exceptional situation, being able to prove why the likelihood of something is probably going to remain consistent over a period of time. I thought opposition was able to take the edge along those lines just because they were able to talk about incentives that corporations might have, which may not necessarily align with the betterment of society, implicit biases that quite often make their way to technology because technology at the end of the day is a product of mankind. I think those were in particular the two arguments that gave opposition the edge. The debate was incredibly close on my sheets. I thought both teams were absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately, the format of the sport is such that there can be only one winner. So, congratulations to Haryana, commiserations to Delhi. In my eyes, you're all absolute champions.
Thank you, Shruti, for your verdict. With that, let me congratulate both the teams. Super congratulations to the team Haryana. And we have seen these students who were not even the winning team, but they went on. So our best speaker from the last tournament, I don't know, gone on to win, be part of the ideal team, might gonna represent India in the upcoming months. And he was not the winner over there. But the point is, he's gone back and look at their scores, look at the feedback, and come back and win the format over there. With that, we are looking, the Delhi team will come forward in upcoming matches. I'm gonna win back. That's the spirit of this game. So with that, congratulations to both the teams, and thank you all the spectators. Now I'm gonna move to another match, and thank you, Lakshmi ma'am, for joining today. We will be happy to invite you again for our upcoming tournaments. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
So moving on to the